If you are reading this, it means that I have committed suicide. Those words written on a Warren County teenager's Tumblr page and now sparking an outcry from the LGBT community tonight. Classmates at Kings High School are also calling for education and tolerance.
Kentucky State legislation had passed a law which I helped advocate for, that they had to have training each year before school started in suicide prevention. So since we had advocated and worked really hard to get this passed into legislation, we thought we would help them have the tools that they needed to work with the kids on. So we got these videos. We took 6 counties which had an average, I think, of 3 to 4 school districts in each county, and we supplied them with 2 of the More Than Sad and 1 of The Truth About Suicide. And we did that by funds raised from a walk that we had for suicide prevention in memory of my daughter. Allison died of suicide on January 1st, 2004. She was 19 years old. She was a 4.0 college student at the University, Eastern Kentucky University, and she had experienced a depressive episode. She'd been diagnosed with depression and bipolar when she was about 17. But our walk for hope is that we hope that people, when they need help, do not feel embarrassed or shamed or stigmatized in getting help. We have a great counseling center here. We have great people at the counseling center. I just hope the Walk of Hope is just real positive. We've got positive music, some good music coming. We've got a little 9-year-old girl that's going to come and sing, who is fantastic, who lost an 11-year-old cousin to suicide.
He was my cousin. I'm sure you want to know why he chose to do that. We'd like to know why too, but we have no clue. He had a ton of family who loved him. He was happy and showed no signs, really. We do know one thing for sure, though our hearts broke that day, and we miss him so much.
The suicide of a teenage girl in British Columbia is drawing attention tonight to the issue of bullying. Before she died, she chronicled online what she'd endured.
Let me introduce myself. My name is Gary McDaniel. I'm a licensed independent clinical social worker. I'm an assistant professor at Marshall University and also director of field education there. I've spent the last 10 years working in a public school in West Virginia. When I first started giving this presentation, we used to say that suicide is the 3rd leading cause of death for kids 10 through 24. That changed about 2 years ago, and the CDC upgraded it. It's now the 2nd leading cause of death for kids 10 to 24 years of age.
I have a family genetic predisposition for psychological disorders, especially borderline personality disorder. My beautiful daughter has borderline personality disorder. With my daughter, the first symptoms showed at the age of 14. We got her help, but since then, it wasn't good enough at that age. We didn't really know what we were doing, and it wasn't really helping her.
So this is Eddie, and Eddie was just telling me a story about a friend of his that he lost. How many years ago was it?
It was about 8 years ago.
8 years
His
ago.
name was William Jones. He had overdosed 3 times on heroin, and then the doctor said next time you do it, it's probably going to kill you. So he was with this girl for about 20 years, and he couldn't get her pregnant. Well, she got with another guy, got pregnant and had twins. When he found that out, he ended up taking his last lethal shot of heroin. And I seen him a week before then. He said that he did not care. He said, "I'm ready to go," and that's exactly what happened to him. He committed suicide. He knew what was going to happen.
suicide might actually be the leading cause of death for kids 10 to 24. But regardless, whether it's the first or the second, it's a big deal. It's a serious matter. And, you know, we all always, of course, think it's not going to happen here, or that can't happen to us. But in reality, it happens everywhere. It is the second leading cause of death. It's the fourth leading cause of death for adults. Sometimes the way suicide gets portrayed in the media, it makes it seem like a kid issue, but I'm sitting here talking to you today about suicide prevention, and back in my own county, we had 3 suicides this week. So I feel a little hypocritical standing here talking to you. Now, they weren't school-age children, but one of them was the father of one of our school-age children. 2 of them were fathers of school-age children. One was the child of one of our teachers. So this strikes close to home for all of us.
Dr. Thomas Joyner has developed what we call interpersonal theory of suicide. And in that theory, he looks at 3 components. He looks at a failed sense of belonging, how people never feel like they quite fit in, or how they have failed at what they wanted to be. You know, they don't have a lot of self-confidence or self-acceptance. And then he's looked at the fact that many people feel like they're a burden. They perceive themselves as a burden. And we've seen this many times in patients that have chronic suicidality. Suicidality, I'm very sorry. But they tend to feel like that their depression, their anxiety, this chronic illness is a burden to those that care for them or care about them. And then the third component is an acquired ability, because we have the innate ability to try to survive in all circumstances. We see it daily when people suffer through floods and fires, tornadoes and hurricanes. People are resilient. But there becomes something different in a person with suicidal thoughts and attempts, is they have that acquired ability to be able to end their life, and it takes a lot for that to happen. Many times we see young people that self-harm, and it may not begin as a suicidal thought, but maybe later on it becomes a suicidal thought. And they continue to self-harm, and it escalates, more intensive, more lethal.
Well, social workers on the micro level, when they work with individuals, they assess clients for depression, for substance abuse, for any history of family suicide, or any previous attempts. So in other words, social workers screen people to determine their level of suicidal risk. And once, if it's been determined that that person is at high risk for suicide, then the social worker is obligated to help them find treatment, like immediate treatment. And sometimes that entails a trip to the emergency room. Typically, that's what that means.
Accidents, as a whole category, accidents. So a lot of those are motor vehicle accidents. A lot of those are accidental overdoses, right? So a lot of accidental overdoses, especially with young people, are called accidental by a coroner. And a lot of motor vehicle accidents are considered accidental you know, if a kid has a, you know, runs into a concrete abutment at 70 miles an hour on a perfectly dry day, maybe it wasn't an accident.
So I have to trust what you're saying, and you have to trust me not to fly off the handle and rush you to the emergency room when you tell me that you're having suicidal thoughts. I have to be willing, I have to be comfortable with that on a certain level, and then be able to assess at what level your risk actually is. But if I find it at high risk, then intervention has to take place.
Warning signs and risk signs are two different things. The warning signs are things that are happening. Risk signs are an overall group. White males between 24 and 40 are the highest risk group. But a warning sign is possibly giving items away, calling friends that they hadn't talked to for some time, being withdrawn, stop taking medications, breaking relationships that seem to be okay. There's many different warning signs. And what is so hard about this is that they are specific many times to the person. We have to watch friends and family that sometimes suffer with depression, anxiety, maybe have a diagnosis or being treated for bipolar or schizophrenia, a borderline personality disorder. These things are all high-risk areas.
So social workers also do a lot of community education. You know, they go into schools and they talk with educators and talk with veterans, just members of the community about what to look for, how to prevent suicide, the resources that are available.
You're giving me a million reasons to let you go. You're giving me a million reasons to get the show. You're giving me a million reasons. Give me a million reasons. Giving me a million reasons. About a million reasons. If I had a highway, I'd run through the hills. If you could find a dry way, I'd forever be still. 'Cause you're giving me a million reasons. Give me a million reasons. Give me a million reasons. About a million reasons. It's stuck in a cycle, I look off and I stare. It's like that I've stopped breathing but completely aware. 'Cause you're giving me a million reasons. Give me a million reasons. Giving me a million reasons.
You know, I wonder how many of the overdoses are intentional, you know.
I think a lot of them. I think probably about 30 to 40% of them are.
But it's more than that.
It could be. Yeah.
But,
Maybe I